Leading in the national polls by 3 points, Kamala Harris appeared on Fox News Wednesday night, and for some reason you got the sense that she felt Bret Baier, the anchorman, wouldn't stop interrupting, sometimes mansplaining, other times racist-splaining. I don't know. Do you think he was interrupting her?
For the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
Which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it. Our solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue.
I hear you.
I hear you, but I'm going to still interrupt you. Then the vice president disrespected Bret Baier by talking over him while he was talking over her.
Were no concerns raised?
Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After
is.
George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand.
Bret later clarified to his Fox News audience that I wasn't disrespecting a woman, I was merely disrespecting a person of mixed race.
Where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention how Donald Trump has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers,
Hamas,
has diminished the significance.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation.
I love this. Bret apologized for talking over her and then begins to talk over her again.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
And then it got kind of interesting. Let's listen to Bret Baier asking why Donald Trump is doing so well.
If he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States, why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid?
Yes.
God, I would never say that about the American people.
I will. They're very stupid. They're very, very stupid. And then she talked about his fascism, Trump's fascism, and Baier showed how bad a journalist he really is.
The American people, he's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes.
This is journalistic malfeasance because he brings up Harris accusing Donald Trump of having fascistic tendencies. And instead of playing one of the many clips of Donald Trump threatening his opponents with being locked up or even worse, instead of that, he just plays the denial. How hard would it have been to play this?
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
He repeatedly says the enemy within. It's straight out of the Hitler playbook. By the way, I altered his face a little. Bret Baier is reprehensible. It turned out in the Smartmatic voting machine case, there are transcripts of phone conversations he had about a month after the 2020 election where he said, "We let Fox News viewers down by calling the election for Joe Biden so soon. Our polling desk should not have called Arizona so soon. He said, we had to ease our viewers into the reality that Biden was going to be the next president. And it was unfair." He literally said this. It was unfair to our viewers to throw at them so quickly the information that Donald Trump lost in 2020. They are something else. Well, one of the more striking aspects about Harris's appearance on Fox News Wednesday is not just her command of all the issues, her ability to spar with Bret Baier, and of course stay on point. She's also reminding us that in the 3 months since Joe Biden has stepped down, Kamala Harris has run a flawless campaign. 0 hiccups. Picking Coach Waltz as her running mate was a stroke of genius. She crushed Trump in the debate. The convention was a triumph, and she's running a really smart campaign, a disciplined campaign. She has to win in Pennsylvania. She doesn't want to keep campaigning in Pennsylvania, but it's tight, so she's staying in Pennsylvania. Trump, on the other hand, was in Coachella last week playing California. What's he doing chasing crowds in Coachella? He's going to be playing Madison Square Garden this month. What is he doing working states he's never going to win? But Harris remains flawlessly, seamlessly disciplined. She has not misspoken once. Usually by now, there's something her press office has to clear up with a candidate. Nothing. And we have some new polling out this morning that looks, I'm going to say, fantastic. Now, the national polling averages have once again tightened. Harris is leading Trump by 2 points in the national polling averages. It doesn't mean anything. Yesterday it was 3. She was leading by 3. Every day it vacillates between 2 and 3 points. She's been leading Trump by at least 2 and 3 points, sometimes 4 points, since August 5th. And she has never let go of that lead in the polls. And here's the really great news. She hit her ceiling again. She hit 50% 2 days ago in the national polling averages. Now, today she's back down to 49%. But the fact that she is pushing the ceiling again is significant. The last time she hit 50 was at the end of September. Trump's ceiling, on the other hand, is 47, and he cannot push past 47. On July 28th, when Harris first became the presumptive nominee, Trump touched 48% for one day, back on July 28th. He has never been at 48% again. The highest he goes is 47%. The highest Harris can go is 50%. And I believe, from what I see, you revert to your ceilings. You come very close to your ceilings on Election Day. Donald Trump can't win the popular vote. It's impossible. He didn't win it in 2016. He didn't win it in 2020. He's not going to win it in 2024. So let's look at the swing states. Harris is now leading in North Carolina by 1 point in the polling averages. She's winning in Nevada by 1 point in the polling averages. Trump is up in Arizona and Georgia by 2 points. Again, these are the polling averages. And as for the blue wall, Harris, as she has been since the summer, she is winning in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and that's all she needs. That's all she needs. Now, it is getting a little tighter in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. She's winning each of those states now by a little more than 1 percentage point. Is the map cracking open? Not yet. Not yet. I keep saying if Pennsylvania were stronger, she would be in Florida by now. She's not. But remember, she needs to win Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes. But if she doesn't, she will. But if she doesn't, then right now it looks like she can replace Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes with North Carolina's 16 and Arizona's 6. So, like she said, this was never going to be an easy race. And I believe to the core of my very being that 24 hours before Election Day, this thing cracks wide open. And we're going to see her sweep all the swing states. And we're all going to say the day after, well, of course, November 6th, November 7th, we're all going to say it's so obvious that she was going to win. Now, am I nervous? Of course. Before her appearance on Fox, Kamala Harris held a rally in Pennsylvania alongside 100 prominent Republicans who have endorsed her. In her speech, Harris brought up Trump's fascist inclinations and then warned the former president is, quote, increasingly unstable and unhinged. In Pennsylvania, Harris was joined at the rally by former Trump staffers and other leading Republicans, including former Congressman Adam Kinzinger, former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, and former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman. The New Republic reports this morning that the Nebraska Supreme Court on Wednesday ruled residents with prior felony convictions can vote in next month's election. That means nearly 7,000 new voters are now eligible to cast a ballot in November. They have until October 25th to register in person or online. This will impact Nebraska Republican Senator Deb Fischer. She's an incumbent who is in a surprisingly tight race against independent Dan Osborne. Osborne, a former union president, is most likely the beneficiary of these new voters. Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin's race against GOP candidate Eric Hovde has now tightened. Baldwin has been running ahead of Hovde all year, but a new leaked internal memo written by the National Republican Senatorial Committee's polling unit shows Baldwin is now trailing Hovde in Wisconsin by 1 percentage point. Over the summer, when asked about voter fraud, Hovde said to prevent it, the elderly in nursing homes shouldn't be allowed to vote because they're going to be dead soon. I mentioned he's a Republican. Eric Hovde asked about the massive flooding after Hurricane Helene, said he wasn't worried because the climate is always changing.
I always like to remind people, we have 15,000 lakes in our great state. How were those lakes created? Because the glaciers came down throughout our states, melted away, receded back, came back down. I'm staying in Madison. Literally, glaciers were as high as our Capitol dome and then went away about 14,000 years ago. So the climate's always changing.
The climate's always changing. Relax. A comet 8 miles wide once hit the Yucatan Peninsula and wiped out the dinosaurs. The climate is always changing. Was the comet man-made? I have no idea. I do know the comet wiped out the dinosaurs, But the humans survived. Did humans have anything to do with that comet? Who can say? I do know from my visits to the Creationist Museum that the dinosaurs were wiped out, but man survived. So who knows? Effing idiot. Democratic Congressman Colin Allred and Republican Senator Ted Cruz squared off in their first and only debate Tuesday night. Recent polling shows the race is now within the margin of error. With that new top secret internal poll for the National Republican Senatorial Committee that I just talked about, that is now showing Ted Cruz only up by 1 point. Cruz, during the debate, looked weak, broken, and flustered. At one point during the debate, Congressman Colin Allred accused Ted Cruz of fixating on transgender youth because Cruz has to deflect attention away from his cruel positions on abortion.
But what he wants you thinking about is kids in bathrooms, so you're not thinking about women in hospitals, because it's indefensible. It's indefensible that we have Texas women being turned away from hospitals, bleeding out in their cars, in waiting rooms, being found by their husbands. So all of a sudden, and this is a good one, all of a sudden, the protector of women and girls is going to be Senator Cruz, who thinks it's perfectly reasonable that if a girl is raped by a relative of hers, a victim of incest, that she should be forced to carry that child to term and give birth to it. You think that's perfectly reasonable, but now you're going to set yourself up as a protector of women and girls? It's laughable. And listen, he's trying to distract you because what can he run on? I've never seen somebody who runs for office on what he hasn't done. He's been one of the least productive senators in the entire country. You know that. I talk to Texans all the time who say, I can't think of anything Ted Cruz has done to help me in my life. When I'm your senator, I'll keep focused on the issues that matter to you, on lowering your costs, on securing the border, on restoring a woman's right to choose. That's what I'll be focused on.
The most unproductive senator in Washington and the most hated. Mitch McConnell won't give him any money. Texas, by the way, has one of the strictest abortion laws in the country, and Cruz has been a leading champion of the pro-life movement. He is also the largest recipient of donations in Congress from the National Rifle Association. During the debate, Congressman Allred held Cruz responsible for thousands of women whose health is under constant threat from Texas's abortion law.
It's time to finally tell the truth here. Senator Cruz just looked into a camera and lied to Texans about my position. Let's be very clear. You should look into the camera and speak to Kate Cox, who's watching right now, and explain to her why you said that this law that you said is perfectly reasonable, why she was forced to leave her 2 children behind and flee our state to get the care that she needed. Or look into the camera and talk to Amanda Zarowski, who's watching right now, and explain to her why it's perfectly reasonable that because she had a complication in her pregnancy and was denied care so long that she may never be able to have children of her own. Or to the 26,000 Texas women who've been forced to give birth to their rapist child under this law that you called perfectly reasonable. It's not. This is not freedom. I trust Texas women to make their own healthcare decisions.
Cruz won the Iowa Republican primary. He beat Donald Trump back in 2016 because you cannot find a candidate who is so opposed to abortion, and the Republicans in Iowa, you can't win Iowa unless you get the evangelicals. He has always been pro-life, but during the debate, Congressman Allred said Cruz is anything but pro-life.
We'll give you 60 seconds.
I want to be very clear to the people of Texas. I support the protections and the restrictions under Roe. But Senator Cruz just called himself pro-life. You're not. You're not pro-life. It's not pro-life to deny women care so long that they can't have children anymore. It's not pro-life to force a victim of rape to carry their rapist's baby. It's not pro-life that our maternal mortality rate has skyrocketed up by 56%. That's not pro-life, Senator. So to every Texas woman at home, and every Texas family watching this, understand that when Ted Cruz says he's pro-life, he doesn't mean yours.
Allred called Cruz's behavior on January 6 cowardly. You might remember when the insurrectionists broke into the Capitol on January 6, Cruz was in the middle of challenging Arizona's slate of electors with Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar. Cruz was all in on the Green Bay sweep, which is why Liz Cheney, who sat on the January 6 committee, endorsed Colin Allred and is actively campaigning for him.
I took off my suit jacket and I was prepared to defend the House floor from the mob. At the same time, after he'd gone around the country lying about the election, after he'd been the architect of the attempt to overthrow that election, when that mob came, Senator Cruz was hiding in a supply closet. And that's okay. I don't want him to get hurt by the mob. I really don't. This election is his accountability. You cannot just be patriotic when your side wins. If for the first time in 250 years, this project of ours, this shared American project, that we did not have a peaceful transfer of power, the folks responsible have to be held accountable. That's why Liz Cheney has endorsed me, has got involved in this campaign, and is saying to Texans everywhere, do not put Ted Cruz back in a position of authority, because he's done it once, he'll do it again.
Allred, a former NFL player, then put Ted Cruz in his place.
Congressman, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Oh, that was really something. I have to say, you can't be for the mob on January 6th and for the officers. You can't. And it's not funny, because you're a threat to democracy.
Wow. J.D. Vance has repeatedly said that had he been vice president on January 6th and not Mike Pence, he would not have certified the election for Joe Biden. Campaigning in Pennsylvania yesterday, Vance was asked if Donald Trump lost in 2020.
First of all, on the election of 2020, I've answered this question directly a million times. No. I think there are serious problems in 2020. So did Donald Trump lose the election? Not by the words that I would use.
The Daily Beast reports this morning that J.D. Vance's financial policy advisor, Aaron Kofsky, who works inside the senator's office, now admits he recently called Vance a quote-unquote Trump bootlicker. Kofsky also said he's addicted to cocaine and gas station heroin. I won't go into what gas station heroin is right now, but you don't want it. Kofsky was busted after posting all these comments on Reddit under the name Psychotic Mammal. Psychotic Mammal. Well, finally, a Republican who possesses self-awareness. During an interview on Tuesday with Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwait, Trump insisted there was a peaceful transfer of power.
Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, you had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful. Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the worst transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do. It's very interesting.
The question, President Trump, is would you respect the decision?
When I found out about this interview, I did a little check. This is a man that has not been a big Trump fan over the years. So I had a choice. Do I do this interview or not? I'm glad I did it. But do I do this interview or do I disappoint a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people in the audience. But his view is very different than mine. Let me just say.
He doesn't answer the question. Of course not. Rolling Stone magazine reports this morning that Trump has already begun calling 2024 rigged. And he reportedly has put together a plan. It's in place to start claiming voter fraud before election night is even over. This is the mop-up for October 17th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and my newsletter. And if you want to help this show, please share this episode. Please share it with your friends. And don't forget to leave a comment. I read all your comments. I do. I read every single comment. And the only reason I have an audience is because of my listeners. Nobody is promoting this show other than my listeners and Robert Smigel and Sam Cedar. Join the tens upon tens of morons who buy their gifts for friends and loved ones when they go shopping over at shopdavidfeldman.com. This is my worst case scenario map on a coffee mug showing that all Kamala Harris has to do is win the blue wall and she gets to 270. That will calm you down, especially if you take a little Jameson's with your coffee. Halloween is at the end of the month. Check out my Halloween collection over at shopdavidfeldman.com, including this collector's item from the 2029 inaugural ball. There's Melania, and there's Donald getting ready for their big dance at the 2029 inaugural ball. Nothing scary about that. Check out the Halloween collection over at shopdavidfeldman.com. Halloween is in like 2 weeks, so if you want the Halloween gifts to arrive on time, you got to do it now. You got to shop now, or then, if you do it in a couple of days, you're going to have to pay for rush shipping. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said Tuesday's first day of voting smashed through Georgia's record. Turnout was the biggest ever. Let me give you a little idea how big it was. There were roughly 135,000 first-day voters in 2020, and for the midterms in 2022, they had about 135,000 first-day voters. Well, first-day voting for 2024 more than doubled that figure, 305,000 Georgians showing up to cast their ballots. Large voter turnout, especially in Georgia, is good news for Democrats, since Republicans can only win states like Georgia by suppressing the vote, especially in heavily black districts. Raffensperger, a Republican, told USA Today that voting in his state is secure, and he is certain, despite claims by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Speaker Mike Johnson, he is certain that they are wrong and that only citizens are casting ballots in this election. In the past few days, Georgia courts have tossed out several attempts by the Trump campaign to slow down the tabulation process with hand counts in Georgia. Also in Georgia, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis filed an appeal over a March ruling tossing out 3 counts against Donald Trump in her RICO trial, which charges the former president with election interference in the state of Georgia. Those 3 counts that got tossed out, there are other counts. These 3 got tossed out. They involve Trump being charged with encouraging public officials to violate their oath when he asked them to participate in the false electors scheme. But Judge Scott McAfee, who was presiding over this trial, threw those 3 charges out back in March, saying they lacked specificity. Judge McAfee ruled there wasn't sufficient information in the indictment for Trump to prepare defense for those 3 counts. The DA's appeal now goes before a panel of judges who are also hearing an appeal by Trump's attorneys, trying to get Fani Willis thrown off the case, accusing her of having an improper relationship with her lead prosecutor. That ruling is expected to be handed down by March of 2025. It's amazing how you can slow justice down when you have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars at your disposal. On Tuesday, Trump was asked to respond to new reporting by Bob Woodward that Trump and Putin have spoken several times since Trump left office. Trump said he wouldn't say whether he talks with Putin, but added, "It would be a good thing if I did." Sure it would. On Wednesday, Trump held a town hall with women on Fox News. They were all plants. Nobody said that until afterwards. According to CNN, they were able to count at least 19 false claims during his appearance. For example, Trump said the cumulative inflation under Joe Biden is 50%. It's actually 21%. If you add up the 4 years that Joe Biden was in office, inflation increased by 21%. Not 50%, as Trump is claiming. Trump said 20 million migrants entered this country. Under Joe Biden, it's closer to 2 million. Trump referred to the 30,000 Haitian immigrants living in Springfield, Ohio, as quote-unquote illegal. But the Republican governor of Ohio has said repeatedly that the Haitians living in Springfield are not only in this country legally on work visas, they were asked to move to Springfield because of a serious labor shortage. Later that evening, Trump appeared at a town hall hosted by Univision. Trump felt right at home because English is also a second language for him. That's on a good day. English is a second language for Donald Trump. Among his many lies during that event, Trump said under his administration, the Mexican border was sealed shut, and it was, quote, the strongest border in American history. Trump repeated the discredited lie that Haitians in Springfield are eating pets, and then he added, they're eating other things too that they're not supposed to be. Trump is testing America's appetite for fascism and racism, which always go hand in hand. If Trump wins, it will be because this country is way more racist and way more authoritarian than any of us realized. Whenever a town has a large black population, Trump automatically calls it corrupt and a third world hellhole. On Tuesday, he was asked about tariffs, and he just had to throw in a gratuitous attack against black people.
Think of it. Not one president charged China anything. They said, oh, they are a third world nation. They are developing. Well, we're a developing nation, too. Take a look at Detroit.
Jesus. But despite courting all the racists in our country, Trump has now been abandoned by KKK leader and white nationalist David Duke. This is bad. This is bad for Trump. First, Trump lost the hardcore pro-life evangelicals by tacking towards the center on abortion, and now he's losing hardcore racists like David Duke. Why is that? Israel. He likes Israel too much. Duke said he had no choice but to endorse Dr. Jill Stein because he said Trump is in the thrall of Israel, which David Duke said is committing genocide in Gaza. One would think that would be a reason for David Duke to support Israel. Dr. Jill Stein rejected David Duke's endorsement. Stein, who is Jewish, said, quote, a racist troll has endorsed our campaign to draw attention to himself, and certain smear merchants are happy to platform this troll to attack us. Of course, I reject any endorsement from a white supremacist like David Duke, unlike Kamala Harris, who can't stop bragging about her endorsement from white supremacist and mass murderer Dick Cheney. Well, that is true. This is the mop-up for October 17th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York. Please like this episode and share it. Share it and, of course, shop over at davidfeldmanshow.com. Let's go. Let's keep going. Trump canceled a CNBC interview after Tuesday's interview with Bloomberg. Despite two town halls that are in controlled environments where Trump can play to the crowd, Trump is finding it increasingly difficult to finish one-on-one interviews with real journalists who ask follow-up questions. He gets very petulant and rambles. But Trump's campaign insists, well, Trump's behavior during these interviews isn't erratic, and that during these one-on-ones with well-respected journalists, he's always staying on point.
Should Google be broken up?
Ooh, big question there, right? Should Google be broken up? Trump is asked if the Justice Department's current lawsuit against Google if he's in the Oval Office, would he continue this lawsuit against Google? This is an important question. Big trial going on right now. Let's hear Trump's response.
Should Google be broken up?
I just haven't gotten over something the Justice Department did yesterday, where Virginia cleaned up its voter rolls and got rid of thousands and thousands of bad votes, and the Justice Department sued them that they should be allowed to put those bad votes and illegal votes back in and let the people vote. So I haven't gotten over that. A lot of people have seen that. They can't even believe it.
The question is about Google, President Trump.
Yes, he just answered the question. Why can't you? Why are you giving him a hard time? Why are you badgering Donald Trump, he answered the question. The Republican Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, announced he is suing CNN after the network reported that Robinson frequented porn sites and on those porn sites referred to himself as a black Nazi. And on the porn sites, apparently he liked to watch videos of transgender women, despite the pastor, he's also a pastor, his nonstop attacks against the transgender community. Robinson admits he used to hang out at 2 adult bookstores in North Carolina, but was only there for the socializing and the pizza. Oh, they serve pizza. That's why it's so greasy. Okay, I didn't know they serve pizza at adult bookstores. Yeah, it's the camaraderie at an adult bookstore. That's why men go there, to hang out with other guys who can't get laid. It's like, like a sports bar. Just hang out, eat pizza, and talk about how no woman wants to get near you. The latest Emerson poll shows Robinson trailing his Democratic opponent, North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein, by 15 points in the race for governor. It's one of the reasons Kamala Harris is going to win North Carolina. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. You've been listening to the Mop-Up for October 17th, 2024. Please check out shopdavidfeldman.com. You can pick up the worst-case scenario map on a mug, and it will calm you down if you take your coffee with some Jamesons. And Halloween, right around the corner, pick up this souvenir from the 2029 inaugural ball. Don't Donald and Melania look happy? Or this Predator mug. Donald Trump is a predator. Do you have a MAGA moron in your life? Pick up this MAGA hat. They can't read, so they won't notice on the back. It says low IQ individual. This is my favorite. Donald Trump in Edvard Munch's The Scream. And if you want to break my heart, buy this. Buy the chef's apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." I love this one. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping things civil. Please leave a comment. I read all your comments. I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow at 2:30. I think I can do it. I didn't drink any coffee for this show, which means I might be able to get some sleep. So I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow at 2:30. But if I don't do one tomorrow at 2:30, I will definitely do one the following day at 2:30. If you've noticed, I'm getting better. I'm 2:30 Eastern. I'm sticking to that, and I'm trying to do more shows. Thank you for listening to me.